Anyway, Joel, I guess Bylos, I guess. I don't know how to pronounce names. Sorry. Joel Bylos, creative director at Funcom, the team behind the park, shared his thoughts on DirectX 12, and I'm just going to sight read here. He said DirectX 12 on PC and DirectX 12 on Xbox One are slightly different propositions. The bottleneck on the Xbox One is the GPU, and DirectX 12 is not a magical wand which will suddenly remove that bottleneck from that. But he goes on to say, so it's not gonna magically make everything 60 frames per second, 1080p. But what he did say is that it would help improve the CPU on the Xbox One, which is actually right now faster than the PS4, and it would make it even faster. So make an even wider gap. And not to bore too much with tech talk here, but this is my proposition, and I think Donovan's going to get in on this. I think we could be facing a Genesis versus Super Nintendo situation again, where the PS4 with the beefier GPU is going to have more colors or, technically better graphics, even though they're not like way better. And you're going to have the Xbox, which is going to be like the Sega Genesis with a faster CPU and essentially having blast processing. A similar situation.
I don't agree with you. I don't think that we will have another war, because I think the nerds that buy these systems are clearly right-minded, level-headed people that don't get easily offended by their personal systems. It's clearly a...
Yeah, sure.
Well, I was like, I would certainly hope it doesn't come down to that. Because who won that last time? I'm pretty sure it was Nintendo.
Talking about against Sega?
Yeah.
No one, and that's my point. No one won.
No one won, actually.
Well, it's like, of them, which company still has a console out on the market, though?
Yeah, that's true.
Well, that's because of other things, such as Sega Genesis. That's because the Sega Genesis continued still trying to sponsor their old systems or create their old systems while creating their new systems. They were just a bad business.
I was going to say, Sega fell because of Sega.
Yeah, no, you can't. I mean, well, yeah, Sega fell because of Sega, but you can't say that you can't say it was because of their marketing scheme, because Nintendo came out with a Virtual Boy.
Yeah, but
and that was an enormous flop.
I was gonna say business practice. Yeah, business practice with Nintendo though is they experiment and they get out there, but they always make sure that they're sure thing. They play safe bets and then they take risks sometimes. Where I think Sega's problem was they just always risk. They never took the safe. They never made sure to have the safe path.
Yeah, with Nintendo, for every Wii U they put out there, they've got a Super Smash Brothers that's going to keep raking in the money to fund the failing.
Or Amiibos. Or take it that handheld games are supposed to be dead, and then you have the 3DS, which is weaker than the PS Vita or whatnot, and it like creams the Vita.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing though. It's like it had better content, and that's kind of one of my big issues when people talk about this console versus this console. They're always talking about graphics and processing power. It's like, okay, yeah, but that's nice, but I'd rather have a good game than a good looking game.
Which I would argue. I'm sorry. I mean, I love the Super Nintendo too, but people always try to sit there and the best games of that era. They always go to Link to the Past or Super Mario World. Great games, and I love them. But Sega Genesis also had a lot of original content too that was really good.
I gotta agree.
I mean, yeah, it did.
People keep skipping over.
I think both systems were.
What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say that the Sega Genesis, while yes, it wasn't the superior system, still had a lot of good quality games and still was fun. A lot of people bought it. It wasn't like if it's an actual versus battle where you say this system won, this system lost, then I would say something like the Game Gear versus the Nintendo handheld Game Boy. Thank you. That was a clear we know which one won.
Yeah.
But and same with when the Sega Saturn came out, and then there's the PlayStation 1 and the Nintendo 64. We know who won. But with the Sega Genesis versus the Super Nintendo, everyone loves all those games on that system. Everyone has good memories of them. So I can't say it's a defining winner of who won that.
Well, to be fair, I think a lot of us were, a lot younger at that time, so it could be nostalgia coloring our opinions.
Yeah.
I definitely agree.
Yeah, it could be nostalgia, but what I'm saying here is we could be. Now, I don't mean it's going to be the same console war or even a console war between the Xbox One and the PS4, but I'm saying I see a little coloring of that era, meaning that you have one system. They're both. Let's be honest, both systems are pretty much the same. One has a little bit beefier, GPU, and the other one has a slightly faster processor. But essentially, they're both kind of the same. They kind of both, cancel each other out.
Exactly, and it's like that's kind of my point. Is they both have slight, software and hardware advances over the other that kind of make them pretty even in that department.
Yeah.
And so it's not going to come down to which has the better processor, which has the better GPU, which has the better CPU. It's going to come down to which has the better games, which has the better content on it.
Yeah. And which
that's
right
the way
now,
it's always been.
And which right now I would argue Microsoft's making a huge push towards
exactly
original content. And not that it's PlayStation's fault. There was actually an interview with the head of PlayStation where he said it's harder for us to invest in that. I think mainly because Sony's not really doing that well money-wise, but also because they're the top-selling system, there's more competition from the third-party developers because they're all
Didn't they just announce that they're releasing 20 plus, titles this year that are exclusively PlayStation?
Yeah, and I would say there's a good chance that I'd say 2 to 4 of those, like The Last Guardian they put in that trailer, which was supposed to come out on the PS3, I don't know, 10 years ago. I'm not holding my breath for The Last Guardian.
I will say this.
And a lot of those games also are technically console exclusive, but they're also going to be on PC. Which, by the way, I love how in the media, when Sony has a game on their console, but it's also on Steam, it's still an exclusive. But when Microsoft has a game exclusive to their console, but it's on PC, it can't be called exclusive in the media. It's just a little biased there. Just saying. Anyway,
I will say this. If there's one game that I think will boost the already impressive PlayStation 4 sales, is the Final Fantasy VII Remake when it comes out.
Yeah.
Because people who had no interest in getting a PS4, but who loved Final Fantasy VII as a child, myself included, will get a PS4 just to play it.
I think that's gonna happen anyway. I think both systems are gonna get a huge push because as we get to either by the end of this year or the beginning of 2017, you're going to have everyone who owns a PS4 is going to be interested in finally picking up an Xbox One because it's going to be really cheap, and vice versa. People who own an Xbox One are also going to be looking at finally getting a PS4. So I really do think there's going to be an uptick for both, people buying, going and buying the other system.
Yeah.
That naturally happens. An argument I would like to make against that, though, is Xbox is working really hard on PC streaming onto the Xbox One. That's one of their main features they're working on now. So you're going to have, and they've said you will be able to play your Steam games, on your PC games onto your thing, and all of these big exclusives that they're touting, Final Fantasy VII, Shenmue 3, they're going to be on Steam as well. And if you can just stream, if you can buy a game on your PC and then just stream it to your Xbox One, because they're both compatible with Windows 10, you don't even need to buy a PS4.
That is a good point. But this does kind of seem like a situation where Microsoft is a little late to the starting gate, because with this kind of leads into cross-platform gaming, which now there will never be cross-platform gaming between PlayStation and Microsoft or anything like that. However, between PC and PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 3, there's actually a fair amount of games that have cross-platform gaming or that are coming out. Say your friend has a top-of-the-line PC, you can't afford one, just get a PS4. There's still a lot of games y'all will be able to play together.
That's cool.
And that's something that Microsoft can't do, or they don't do until they came out with Windows 10.
Yeah.
And now they're kind of trying to really incorporate that. So they're a little late on the draw there, but I'm interested to see what they're going to do with that.
Yeah. Anyone have any opinions? Any more opinions on this before we move on to the final topic?
I am quite afraid. quite afraid that I have no input to share upon this subject matter.
What about you, Donovan?
No, I've already said my piece.
You, Jonathan? Google Cardboard all the way? Google Cardboard.
Google Cardboard. I mean, I guess I could work Google Cardboard into the conversation because Google Cardboard is based solely upon
God
the
damn
hardware
it.
that your phone runs. Whereas, if it really is about hardware with certain aspects, like if you're gonna make a video game that relies on, graphic capabilities, it has to be really good. Then yeah, you have to have a system that can run it. But when you get down to the details where it's like you're getting screen.
If you don't have a piece of cardboard on your face, what's the point?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, moving on. What were we gonna say?
Yeah, I have a feeling that he actually paid money for that Google Cardboard, and that
I feel like he did too.